Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Does it sound okay? I hope it is. And you can see the slides. Jazakallah khair. So just so I can get an idea of age groups, just put in the chat. Inshallah, I'm fine, alhamdulillah, thank you for asking. Noor Ali, I'm very well, thank you very much. Nobody asks me, that's really nice of you. Just so I have an idea of age groups, because there's quite a lot of people on here. Just give me a gist of how old you are, just so I know how to pitch it, basically. 14, 17, 14, 14. Keep going. 15, 9th grade, 14, 14. Okay, that's reasonable. Okay, I was expecting that. So what we're going to do for the next hour or so, should go through how to understand emotions, because this is something that you don't really get taught in life. You have to just figure it out and learn to swim in the deep end. So we're going to spend the next hour or so talking about this, and what I would prefer to try and keep it as interactive as possible. Anybody sometimes feel like this, where you just feel, gosh, life's just really tough, and where am I going to, what's it going to be like tomorrow or the week after or the years after? I'm lost. Anybody feel like this? Getting a lot of yeses. Don't worry, we're here to help you, okay? Anybody feel like this? Any lads? Lots of sisters are replying, where they just think, I just can't do this anymore, or just life's just really hard, or I can't cope with all this stuff going on in my brain sometimes. Lads are really quiet. It's really, really, really common, and this is what we're going to talk about as we go along. Do you feel like this sometimes, where you just feel sad, where you just feel really, really sad and upset, and you think, gosh, is it going to be like this for a long time? Okay. Now, what I want to say is it's absolutely okay to feel the way you feel. And I know this has become a cliche now since COVID, but it is absolutely okay to feel okay. And one of the reasons why it's important to have this conversation is because sometimes when you feel like that, when you feel sad, when you feel low, when you feel upset, when you're crying, when you can't sleep, you're struggling to eat and so forth, sometimes you feel alone, that you're in this on your own, and there's only you that feel that way. But recently, especially after we're going back to some form of normality, you've all seen it on the news. I'm sure that mental health problems in young people have increased by 50%. It's increasing as the day goes on. A significant portion of my workload is young people who are really struggling with mental health problems. So how many suffer with a mental health problem or with difficulty managing their emotions? And it's actually 1 in 5. So 1 in 5 here suffer from a mental health problem. So it's really, really common. So that's 6 in every classroom of 30. And believe it or not, when you look at adulthood, when we diagnose mental health illnesses like depression or anxiety, the two common ones, actually 70% of cases actually stemmed from it all started in childhood. And that's why we're having this conversation, trying to help you as best as we can. So when I say us, what I mean, because I presume the vast majority of people on here are Muslim, is that correct? And I presume that the vast majority of people here are of a ethnic background, is that correct? So ethnic background meaning BAME, so Black, Asian, ethnic minority. Yes, yeah. So this is based on. So Hakeem and Sakina, are you from a BAME background or not? Okay, so okay, that's fine. This slide is really, really important. So this is based on a study that was done in London. So in London, they asked the question, why is it that people from the South Asian community, so that meaning, Hakeem, that's amazing. That is amazing. So what that means is, why is it that South Asians, so Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, and also other ethnic minority groups like Black Afro-Caribbean, Somali, and so forth, why is it that they don't go to the GP to go and seek help? What is the problem? So they studied hundreds of people. I'm from Manchester. So they studied hundreds of people, right? Abdurrahim, hundreds of Asians. Why? And this is what they came up with. The top one of why we don't go. When I say we, I mean us Asians. Okay, why do we not go to the GP for mental health problems? And the biggest one is shame or shut up. And there's a massive, like, you're not allowed to have emotions in our culture. You're just not allowed to have it. I had a trainee last year from Nigeria, and he said there's no such thing as depression in Nigeria. You'd be slapped silly if you told someone that you had depression. And you kind of hear this in some of the elder generation, is just get on with it. I had to do X, Y, and Z. So why are you struggling? And so what happens is then a human being, they end up becoming fearful. Like you're on the chat, a lot of people have said it. People feel scared, so they're fearful of the response of people. Like somebody's mentioned reputation and family's reputation. Absolutely, that there's a shudam. You're bringing shudam to our family, and then they just live a life of secrecy. Causes are also misunderstood. So this is when it gets a bit funny, right? What do we say in our culture if somebody has a mental health problem? What's the commonest things that we say? Give me a shout out or type it up. What do we say when someone, Alhamdulillah, crazy, madness, can't type Punjabi? It's because of the phone. We don't have to worry about. You haven't said what's actually. Yes, that's it, Abdullah. Jinn. Commonest thing is jinn. That this person has a jinn in them, or Abdullah Siddiqui said nazar, that someone's done jadoo or magic on them. Now, we believe as Muslims that these things are real, the evil eye is real, nazar is real, jinns are real, and so forth. But it cannot be that every single blooming case of a mental health problem is because of jinn or evil eye or nazar. But we go there first, right? So that was one of the top things that causes misunderstood. Then there's a social pressure to conform. In other words, just get on with it. What you sad about, get on with it. You just, life is just about getting on with it. Okay. Other things that people with mental health problems are not valued. They're just like people are saying. People say it's crazy, it's bagal, just stay away from that person. They're weird and this and that. And another big thing that came out of this study is that marriage prospects are damaged. Like, for example, if you've got a boy and a girl and they're talking about getting married with the families, and one of them says, you know what, I've got high blood pressure. The other will say, that's fine, that's cool, you're taking medication, you'll be fine. But if somebody says, to their prospective wife or their husband that they're going to marry, I need to tell you, because you should be honest in a relationship, I need to tell you that I suffer from depression. Do you think that person would get married to the other if they know that their prospective wife or husband has depression? Now, most people are saying no. Do you think the parents would let them get married? And the answer is no, because they see it as a death wish. And this is the tragic thing that came out when they studied Asians in London. And this is another problem, and especially in our culture, it's a massive problem. Backbiting, slandering, gossiping. You can't get away from it. Like, sometimes it's hard to get past a conversation without somebody backbiting about somebody else. Why is this important? Because look, if there's any tradition on the planet that should be like an exemplar for other cultures about not backbiting, it should be us. Because in our tradition, the shidda, the intensity of the prohibition of backbiting, slandering, gossiping is massive. It's huge. And so, but when you backbite about someone and it's doing the rounds, and now you can like type something, يحب أحدكم أن يأكل أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه. What Abdurrahim is getting at, that verse in Surah Hujurat. So if now you can just type something up on your phone. You can go around the world in an instant. People are not stupid. People can cotton on and work out if people are backbiting about you. It's very easy to do. And then what happens? What do you think is the consequence? So after all this information that I've given you, what's the consequence? What happens to people who suffer from mental health problems or they're struggling emotionally? What do? Any shout outs? People are typing. Yes, it gets worse. What does the individual do themselves? Now, that does happen, Alia. Yes. They think, what's the point of carrying on? Self-harm? Yes. Self-harm, absolutely. Blame themselves? Yep, absolutely. this happens as well. So if you look at this picture, it's easier for a lot of people who suffer. It's easier for them to just smile and pretend that they've got life figured out than to tell the world why you feel sad. It's just so much easier. So right now we're in a generation now where you can tell people based on your social media status or whatever, okay, based on that, you can prove to the world that you're super happy, super busy, super successful, super funny, super amazing, super everything, and you've got life figured out. When in reality, you're like the apple on the right hand side, where you're underneath, you're really really sad, and you haven't got life figured out, and you're drowning. And that's what happens. There's an ultimate, you fake it, but that process causes two things. One, reluctance to seek help is a big one, and the other one is it just compounds the problem more and more. So the key messages from this is, look, and I want everybody to internalize this, not just to know it, to own it. Okay, but look, mental health problems are common. The conclusion is anyone can be affected, any age, any gender, any race, any socioeconomic status. There are plenty of people who are very, very wealthy who suffer from mental health problems. Look at some sports personalities and celebrities out there. It's really common. But the other key message is people can and do recover. They do. My patients certainly do. They can recover and they do recover. And that's the important message, that it's not that you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. And one thing that I add in for the Muslim community is that it's definitely not a sign of weak iman. If anybody tells you that, you send them to me, and I'll talk to them till the end of the night to convince them that it's not a sign of weak iman. What was the Prophet ﷺ, he went through, he was in secrecy for a couple of years, and then when he came out, explained to the people of Quraysh that he's a messenger and he was calling people to Allah, he had 3 years of just beef between his own family and his own people. Then they were exiled for 3 years to the valley of Abu Talib, and they were literally eating leaves because they had nothing to eat. No one would do business with them. They had nothing to eat, and they would eat leaves. And then as soon as they came out, who passed away? Anybody know? As soon as they left, his uncle and his wife, Abu Talib and Khadija radiallahu anha, they both died within months. Okay, what was that year called? Anybody know? That specific year has a term. The scholars of Sirah, of biography, yes, Amun Huzn, the year of sorrow, the year of sadness, the year of grief. Now, it's not a sign of weak iman. The Prophet ﷺ experienced deep sadness at times. All of his children, apart from Fatima radiallahu anha, passed away in his lifetime. Of course, he had moments of sadness. So being sad and being affected, he was never depressed, but being sad and having that emotion is not a sign of weak iman. It's a natural human response that Allah's created in us. Okay, and that's why no one should tell you that it's a sign of weak iman, ever, because that's just horrible. So the conclusion is, look, mental health is nothing to be ashamed of, and neither is there any shame in talking about it. Okay, so we're going to talk about it today. But what I want you to understand is, okay, it's really important to understand your emotions about what's going on in your brain. Anybody seen this picture before? Anybody seen this picture, what it means? No? Okay. So our brain, there's lots of parts to it, but I want you to focus on 3 parts to it. Can you see my cursor? On the, yeah, okay, right. So the front part of your brain, this is called the frontal lobe. Okay, this part of your brain, this bit here, it actually is there for decision making and control. So making a decision and controlling your behavior. Okay, and so this is called the frontal lobe. In girls, women, it fully develops by the age of 18. In boys, it takes longer. It takes 7 years longer. It's 25 for the brain to, the decision part of the brain, decision part of the brain to fully develop. It takes 25 years for a man. That's why men do stupid things for a long time, because it takes them ages to mature, and they do stupid because they can't control their decision making. And then what happens is, and if you look at how old was the Prophet when he got married? Anybody know? How old was he when he got married? 25, Abdullah Siddiq, correct. There's a reason why that happens. Everything that happened to the Prophet was divine for a very specific reason. I'm not saying that a boy should get married until 25. What I'm trying to say is that when the Prophet reached maturity, that's when he got married. So 25, when this part of the brain develops. Then on each side, you've got the parietal lobe, which is your default. Okay, so what you're accustomed to do, that's that part of the brain. Bang in the middle, and this is one of the smallest parts of the brain, is the limbic system, which is your emotional brain. Okay. Your emotional brain is a lot more powerful than your frontal brain, which is your decision-making brain. Just have a guess how many times more powerful is the emotional brain to the frontal lobe, to the decision-making part of the brain? 10 times? Any ideas? 100 times? So it's 5 times more powerful. Okay, 5 times more powerful by default as a baseline. That is exactly it, Borhan. It's the chimp paradox. So it's 5 times faster. However, if it's your default, sorry, I've got hay fever, just bear with me. If it's your default, so Ali, is it different? Yes, it is. I'm going to talk about how to tame the chimp, how to control your emotional brain. But if it's your default, if you're habitually emotional and you haven't controlled your emotions, which we're going to talk about, it's 20 times faster. 20 times faster. Okay, so that's what's going on in the brain. Okay, now I'm going to try and give you a scenario to try and, if we go back, to try and understand these 3 bits here. Okay, so I'm going to give you a scenario. Imagine what happens at the baseline, right? We have a situation, something happens to us. It generates, this is the order it happens. It generates a thought, then it generates an emotion, then it generates a response, which is a behavior. So I'm going to give you an example. I want you to work with me. Okay, give me some shout outs. Imagine I'm driving my car and I've had a long day at work and I'm desperate to get home, tired, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I want to get home, I just want to chill out. I'm driving home and some dude cuts me up as I'm driving and we nearly crash and he just drives off, he just speeds off. What's that? So that's the situation. What's the first thing I'm going to think? Boy, I'm going to sue him, idiot driver. Yeah, absolutely. What a muppet. I'm going to go beep, 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 beep and chase him and, all sorts, right? What's my emotion? So that's what I'm going to think. What's my emotion? So emotion is your feeling, anger, yeah? What else? Yeah, shock, yeah. Okay, pain, and then frustration, yeah. And then what am I going to do? So I'm going to have all these thoughts. You muppet, what are you cutting me up for? That's it now. My guy's going to get it. What am I going to do? Pick yourself and move on. I could do that. Act on the emotion, open the window, act without calming down. That's it, Mohammed. You act without calming down. Okay, now, act irrationally, absolutely. Now picture this in your mind, okay? What if telepathically he could say to me, this driver, bro, I'm really sorry. I nearly killed you. We nearly crashed, but my mama is in hospital and the doctors have said you need to come now because this could be her last half an hour. Okay? What would I think now? Not what would I do. What would I think? You'd feel pity. Yep. What else would I be thinking? You feel sorry for him. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What's the emotion now? Yes, I'd feel guilty. I'd feel sad for him. I'd feel bad for myself. And then what would I do? What's my next step? What am I going to do? How am I going to respond to this guy? Yeah, you'd go, yeah, you know what, bro? Inshallah, I hope you make it. Or make dua for your mama. Hope she feels better. So what I've told you in less than a minute, I've taught you how you can change your behavior by changing your thought process and emotion, depending on changing your perception of the situation. Did that make sense? In an instant, you can change your thought processes and your emotions, and then by default, change your behavior. Why is that important? Because what the mistake that people make is that they look at the behavior. So common scenario is you get, the poor wife who's struggling with her husband. She throws him in the room and says to me, Dr. Gogi, you need to sort my husband out. He's just permanently angry. Right? This is a classic scenario. And what the wife is doing is like, sort his anger out. But what the wife needs to understand is that anger is just tip of the iceberg. There's layers behind it. There's emotions, there's thought processes, and there's a situation that's triggering this person. So if you go back, it's all about this bit here. It's about controlling your emotions, and the concept's called taming the chimp. How do you tame this? And we're going to talk about that today. That's it. That's today in a nutshell. controlling your emotions by changing perceptions, okay? And we'll talk you through how to do that. Okay, so that's what goes on in the brain, okay? Let's talk about common mental health problems and link it to what we've been talking about so far. Just so I know, how much time do I have? Anybody? 18 minutes until 12 formally. Until 12. Okay. If I drag on, just apologies. Okay. But we can extend. Okay, yeah. The problem I have is that I'm not a disciplined speaker and I yap on because I love talking. But that's a different story. Okay, so what is depression and anxiety? Because these are the two commonest things that we see in general practice, all age groups. Okay, so we'll talk about why it happens, what it is, and what are the solutions. Okay, inshallah. So depression, okay, understand this, is low mood that lasts for a long time, not just overnight or a few weeks, usually 3 to 4 weeks minimum. But this is the key, and it affects your everyday life. Okay, the key is that it impacts your functional ability. So I'm not talking about you're just low in mood because your football team got beat again, and then you're just moaning about it. That's not depression, okay? Or you didn't get picked for the school team, or your mom said you can't go to your mate's house and you just have a mood, right? Or you have to eat your broccoli, right? That's not depression. That's just being low in mood, okay? It lasts for a long time. Mariam, no one is affected because of no solid reason. I'll come to that in a sec. So it's depression that lasts for low mood that lasts for a long time, but it affects your ability to function. So basically, you can't function. So for you guys, you can't bring yourself to brush your teeth. You're in your pajamas all day. You don't want to eat. You don't want to do your homework because not because you can't be bothered, but generally you just don't have the motivation behind it because you feel so sad. So the key is that it lasts for a long time and it affects your ability to function. Okay. Now there's lots of causes. Okay. So somebody said, can you have it for no reason? No. Yeah, Manchester United. I think that's what he means. I know how you feel, Abdullah, because it's getting really depressing. But these are the top. Now look in the middle here. This I want you to focus on. Okay, the two top causes of depression, any age group, any gender, any race, any culture, any socioeconomic status, how rich you are, basically. Family relationships and trauma. And this is where it gets a bit sensitive. Okay, and I apologize in advance if it's going to trigger anybody. Okay, but it's important to know why you feel the way you feel. Okay, if a human being has experienced trauma, and I think we all know what trauma is, okay, and I've got to be gentle about it, but essentially, in a nutshell, it's abuse. Okay, it's really hard for a human being, even an adult, to make sense of it. It's just rock hard to make sense of it when they go through that. The second thing is family relationships. So I know this is really, really sensitive because I don't know everybody's situation, but it's important to have open conversations. If a child is witnessing their mum and dad having a really, really toxic, volatile relationship where they're at each other's throats, shouting, screaming, fighting, and look, we've got to be realistic, even hitting, it is so hard. It is so hard to make sense of it. Because as a child, how do we view our parents? You're my heroes. You're supposed to love each other and we're supposed to be a loving family no matter what. Like, why on earth are you arguing with each other? Why on earth are you fighting with each other? Because you're right, they're your role model, they're our heroes. It makes no sense, right? And then what happens is, generally, I mean, I'm generalizing, but with boys, they get really angry because they're so frustrated. They want to do something, but they can't go and beat up your dad, can you? That's what they want to do, and neither could you go and beat up your mom because that's not what you do. So when boys have like when they've got a situation which is out of their control, but it's causing them a lot of emotional distress, they get angry and they don't know how to deal with it, and then they get sad and so forth. Whereas our female counterparts, they just become really sad and close and so forth. So these two are the commonest two. But then you've got other things, like for example, other family circumstances, like if your finances are tight and you're struggling, it impacts the children. School, and the big one is bullying. Well, there's two things in school. One is bullying, and the other is not being able to. It's called performance anxiety. Not being able to keep up with work because you're struggling and you're too scared to explain it, and then you're made to feel, or you feel like you're thick or dumb because you're not keeping up with it. That's really traumatic for a child. Then there's peer pressure. People just egging you on to do stupid things, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to be there. Obviously, drugs is a big one. Okay, this is just your personality, general self-esteem. Your coping skills could need improving. Your social skills could need improving. If you've got poor coping skills generally or social skills, that can affect you. Genetics does play a part, but believe it or not, less than 5% of cases are because of genetics. And then you've got physical health and disability. If you have a clinical condition, yes, less than 5%. They've mapped the whole genome. And for mental health, it's less than 5%. So you can't blame genes. Okay. So yes, low self-esteem does. Okay. And I'll come to low self-esteem in a second. But if someone's ill, if someone has a physical health problem and they're limited in what they can do, it'll make them feel sad. Or if someone has a disability and they can't do what others are doing, it can make them feel sad. So these are general causes, and they can overlap as well. It can be more than one, but the top two are these two. And we'll talk about how to manage that as well, inshallah. So that's causes, and then what happens? Like these are common symptoms: feeling rubbish about yourself, feeling like nothing's going to change. It's always going to be rubbish. You just can't. You don't have any interest or motivation to do anything, especially things that you enjoy. For boys, what they do, they're just hooked with gaming. That's their escapism. Well, boys and girls now, everybody just goes onto their phone and just doom scroll or watches nonsense on YouTube or TikTok forever, and hours pass by. One patient, she spent 10 hours a day outside of school on her phone. She had depression, but she spent 10 hours a day on her phone. It's a disaster. The whole childhood is just being snatched, basically. You don't want to. You just want to be left alone. You spend a lot of time crying. Even boys, yes, even boys spend a lot of time crying. They sleep a lot, or they can't sleep, and they don't eat. These are really common symptoms that people experience. Okay. Then also you can feel anxious, where you feel a bit uneasy, you feel nervous, on edge, worried constantly, can't control your thoughts. Anybody experience that? Experience that, where you just constant thoughts and you just want your brain to shut up. Okay, just constant thoughts, or you worry about things that are just nothing to worry about, like nothing to worry about. There's something to worry about. Okay, then therefore you can't relax and you're restless. Okay, and so these are some of the symptoms that you experience. Okay, now we talked about it before. Worst case scenario is self-harming and suicidal thoughts. Really, really, really important to have open conversations about this. That this is a reality. Okay. Now, if there is anybody on here who is experiencing these symptoms, it's really important to get help, and there's no shame in doing it. Okay, no shame whatsoever. Okay, no shame, and that's the end of the conversation. But what you have to do first, this is the most important steps. Okay, you have to acknowledge what you're feeling. There has to be a level of acceptance that actually I could be unwell here. I feel really sad. Some of these symptoms resonate with me. Gosh, I might be experiencing depression or anxiety. It's really important. You cannot solve a problem until you accept that there's a problem. It's impossible to do it. And in fact, remember that in life, because remember, look, inshallah, you'll go on to have a career, you'll go on to have a family, and there's going to be ups and downs. But if you want to push through some of the barriers that life throws at you or difficulties, you've got to accept that the problem could be you. Otherwise, you'll just be going round and round in circles all the time. Then the second thing you need to tell yourself is that it's okay. Marriage is their way to accept. Yeah, tell yourself. Or get someone who you trust, that you believe that they're 100% honest with you, to explain to you why they think you're experiencing emotional difficulty. But you have to believe that you're going to be okay, and that it is okay, and you will be fine. Go to your doctor if you don't trust anybody. You have to. Okay, but it's okay. You will be okay, and you'll be fine. And the reason is because you have Allah, and we'll talk about why this is really, really important. Knowing that you have Allah. We'll answer that question at the end, if you can't get to the doctor. Okay, it's going to be okay, but also you have to be, and this is where it gets a bit difficult to have a balance. But you have to be gentle with yourself, and to be gentle with yourself, you have to have compassion with yourself, and to have compassion with yourself, you have to love yourself. Now, I don't want anybody to leave this workshop and then start putting loads of selfies on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, narcissistic, saying, "Look at me, I'm amazing" type thing. I don't mean that. I mean understanding this, that look, your maker, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, loved you enough to give you life. Loved you enough to give you life. You're a being of worth. That you have a massive standing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Out of all creation, He's honored us more than anything that's in existence. And that means that you're a person of value. So you have to value yourself. But it takes having compassion for yourself, loving yourself in the first place, and recognizing why it's important. Why is this important? The reason why it's important is this. Ask yourself a question. When you love someone and they're upset, would you make sure that they feel happy? Yes or no? When you love somebody, would you make sure they get a good night's sleep? When you love someone, would you make sure they eat properly? When you love someone, would you make sure that they achieve their life goals? Of course you would. The same has to apply for yourself, okay? But it takes knowing deep down, internalizing it, owning it. And some of the scholars, they used to say that one of the biggest ni'mah, blessings Allah has given us is wujud, existence, okay? So it's really important to start with this, really important. Then what you have to do is, like we've talked about this before, okay? Tell someone of responsibility and reach out. So you've got pastoral care here, but reach out to your parents. Look, parents have a soft spot for their kid, no matter what you do, okay? When I was your age, I don't want to tell you what I did, okay? But my mum and dad loved me no matter what, unconditioned, no matter what stupid thing I did or I continued to do when I was your age. They loved me because that's what parents always have a soft spot because you're part of them. And they unconditionally love you. Now, if you go to your parents, right, and you grab your mum's hand and you grab your father's hand, if your parents are alive, okay, or your parents are together, but you grab your parents' hand or one of them and look them in the eye and say, Mama, Papa, this is how you say it, I love you. And I know that you love me. I'm really struggling and I need help. What do you think your parents would do? I cannot imagine anybody saying, get out of here, man, I'm busy. No one would say that. Agreed? Am I being realistic? If you pitch it like that, Mama, Papa, I love you, okay? Abdurrahim, agree to disagree. That makes no sense whatsoever. I don't believe at all that any one of your parents would tell you to yard your boat. Honestly, don't agree with that at all. Try it if you're struggling, and then you can let me know. But basically, I've not met one parent when I've told a child to do this, reject them. And I tell a lot of young people to do this. They would help you. Of course they would. Okay, because what happens is one will help you. Okay, they might say, oh, I don't believe it's all in her head or in his head. But one parent will believe you. They're not going to leave you hanging if you're there saying, I love you and I'm struggling and I need help. And this is what I'm struggling with. Now, if you're in a situation which is very rare, where both parents are just not interested, then you have to reach out to someone of responsibility. Pastoral care, you've got it here. You can arrange to see your GP. Now, you don't need your if your parents are like slap bang refusing to take you, you must have somebody that you can go with who's older, who you trust, like an uncle or an auntie. Okay. Technically, when you hit 14, you can book your own appointments. Technically, that's how it works in our practice. Once you hit 14 years old, as long as you can demonstrate that you're mature, we'd happily speak with you. But you've got to find a way, okay? When you find a way, when you're committed to finding a way, you will find a way. And then the next step is to engage with therapy, okay? Now, what is therapy? Okay, so take your mind back to that brain picture that we had about emotions and thoughts, process, and so forth. Remember, they're all linked. You have a situation, you have some thoughts about what's going on here, you have some emotions, you have some bodily sensations, and then you have a behavior, okay? What therapy does is try to reset it in a way that works for you because everybody's different, okay? So I'll give you an example. Imagine this sort of a scenario, okay, where you have this, you didn't do too well in some coursework or an exam, right? and your thought process after the exam, because you got a bad mark, was, you know what, I'm useless. I'm just a failure. I'm rubbish. There's no point. That's the thought, right? Then you have a feeling of, you know what, I just feel really crap about myself. I feel really low. I feel really upset. I'm just useless. I'm an embarrassment to my family. My parents are just going to be really embarrassed because, I'm doing rubbish, right? That's your feeling. And then your behavior will be like, I'm just not going to do it. There's no point. I can remember when I was doing my GCSEs, one of my friends, I looked at him and he had his head down on the table like this. And he's one of the science papers. And after the exam paper, I was like, Paul, what was up with you, man? He said, you know what? There was no point. I'm just rubbish at science. So what I did on every single page, I just wrote in capitals, I don't understand anything. And he just gave up. But that could have been prevented, if he sought help earlier. But that's what happens in our brain, right? What therapy does is try and reset it and reframe it so that your perception changes, then your thoughts change, then your emotions change, and then your behavior changes. Does that make sense? Right? I'll give you an example. Right? One thing one of my other jobs is to teach junior doctors becoming GPs who go through exams and they go through rigorous assessments and so forth. And I also coach trainees who fail. Right? And I have this word for them. So they come and see me, they fail their exams, and they come and see me and they say, Dr. Goga, I can't do this, I failed my exams, it's terrible, I'm really stressed out, I can't do it, I've tried so hard, I've tried everything. So one thing I say to them is, look, change the F word. And I say this to my kids, okay? Change the F word. That's your starting point. There is no such thing as failure. Okay, anybody know what the alternative F word is for failure? There's no such thing as failure. It's what? Sports. This is big in sports science. It's fantastic. No, you're nearly there, Alia. Begins with an F. So it's not failure. It's fabulous. It's feedback. Okay, it's feedback. There's no such thing as failure in life. It's feedback. Okay, when you don't achieve to a standard that's expected from you, that's just feedback. All you need to do is up your game and get to that level. Okay, when that process gets in your brain, honestly, when you get feedback, when you quote unquote fail and you don't do a quote unquote good job, you actually start loving it. Because what happens is when you get feedback, you have growth. When you have growth, you know that you're achieving high levels. Okay, when you have that, when you have growth in life, in anything, whether it's with yourself, whether with your career, with your learning, with your relationships, you feel alive because you're heading somewhere awesome. Okay, failure is never failure. That's just a word that we've been conditioned to believe since we were kids. Because when we were in school, we were given red crosses and green marks. And it's just because of the way our brain has been cultured, fail, fail, fail. It's nonsense. No such thing as failure. It's all feedback. And ultimately, when you up your game, you become a better person and you become a better, like take doctors, for example, when they go through this failure thing, right? Quote unquote failure. At the end of it, they become a better doctor because they actually focus a lot more. They're more in the zone, basically. They learn from their mistakes. Now, that change of a word has changed my trainees' thoughts, has changed their feelings, has changed their behavior in an instant. And that's what CBT is. Now, imagine if you have something that's really, really hard, like you're going through trauma or you're going through difficulty with parents or your own physical health and so forth. If you have this conversation with a therapist over and over and over again, what do you think it would do to your brain? It would calibrate, it would sort it out in no time. And then what happens, and this is the awesome bit, you develop these skills in your brain to develop a mechanism of managing difficulty when it comes your way. Basically, you're rock hard here. And what I tell my patients and what I tell when I deliver these talks to other working groups and masjids is that if you master this, if you master the mind, you master the world. And that's the secret of life. If you master this, you master the world. The very few things will make you feel upset. Okay. Now I'm going to go through what's called the 90-second rule. Okay. I'm just going to start you off on what therapy is. Okay. So what they recommend is when something's annoying you, right? Preferably on your own. Give yourself 90 seconds to let it out, okay? But you have to have a timer, okay? 90 seconds maximum, and then stop. Because if you carry on, okay, past 90 seconds, it then becomes your default, okay? In other words, you've got to stop it, because if you're permanently angry about something, you'll become angry probably for a long time. So give yourself 90 seconds and then stop. Then what you do what's called the stop technique, which is a breathing technique. And what you do, and you can do it now as you're listening to me, you stop. You say to yourself, stop thinking like this. I'm going to stop. Then you take a deep breath in for 3 to 4 seconds and you hold it. And you're going to try it. All you do is just breathe in deeply as if you've got a balloon in your belly and hold it for 4 seconds. So breathe in for 4 and then hold it for 4. Literally like, and then hold it for 4 and then breathe out for 4. Right? And you do that for about 3-4 cycles. And what you will notice happening to your brain is that your thinking will stop. And the reason scientifically why your thinking will stop is because you're in survival mode, because you're telling yourself to stop breathing. I'm going to die if I stop breathing. So your brain shuts off thinking about anything else. You can do 4-7-8, you can do 3-4-5, you can do anything. You do 3-3-3, 4-4-4, whatever works for you, Noor. But when you do that process of breathing, of belly breathing and holding your breath, then what happens is it stops your thought processes and you can actually calm down. Then you observe and you take a step back and think, what's going on here? What am I thinking? What am I doing? What am I about to do? What is going on here? And then you put it in perspective. And I'll give you an easy one because it helps Muslims. And try it, okay? If you feel overwhelmed and you're worried about what you're going to do next, once you do all these breathing techniques and you stop yourself down, just ask yourself, if the Rasul was next to me right now, what would he tell me to do? Like, what would he tell me to do? And you'll find the answer. Okay, and then you do it over and over and over again. Why? Because it has to become your habit. Because you always do what you're habitually accustomed to do. You always do what you habitually do. If your habit is to calm down very quickly, put it into perspective, and use the rational brain more than the emotional brain, you're in control of your chimp. But it takes, practice to do that. Okay. Now, also how to help yourself, and then we'll finish in a bit because I know you've got a lesson at 12 o'clock, right? We're going to take some questions. But also how to help yourself. So we talked about, seeking therapy and seeing a GP, but also, look, you have to have a super rich diet. And I'm sorry, guys, like junk food, sugary foods, they ruin the brain. There was a study done called the SMILE study. They got a group of young adults who had depression, and they put one group on a Mediterranean diet, which is everything that you can see on the screen. Okay. Real food, no processed foods, no takeaway, no junk, no rubbish, basically. And they put them on this diet. And then they got another group of individuals who were same age who had depression and put them on medication. And guess which group recovered quicker and longer? It was the group that went on the diet changes and nothing else. So basically, what you eat is medicine or either poison for your brain. Dark chocolate is fine. Normal chocolate is just rubbish. Maybe for treats only, inshallah. But generally, you want to think about having a super rich diet. It's really important. It'll catch up with you if you don't. Look, 60% of our food is processed. 60% of our food is processed, okay? Once a week, Noor Ali, ice cream's fine. And it's pumped with sugar to make it taste nice, okay? It's going to really catch up with you. It affects your mind. It affects your mood. It affects your attention span. It affects your sleep. It affects your concentration. It affects everything, okay? If you eat more healthily, your brain will feel alive. Simple as, okay? Be physically active. It's proven to improve your mood, sleep, self-esteem, stress, depression, you name it. By about 30%, it reduces it. It's magic. So what you want to aim for is as little as 20 to 30 minutes of some form of physical activity every day. That can be walking, that can be jogging, that can be cycling, that can be swimming, that can be anything that gets your heart rate going. But you've got to do it. You have to do it. I've got a patient. Allah save us from this. He's in his 50s. He got divorced. His kids are all settled, and he went from a beautiful house family to just looking at four walls in a small flat. He was suicidal. He was desperate to not go on medication. I convinced him to run, and now he runs 12K 3 times a week, and he's fine. And that's his medicine. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Understand? So it's really important to keep physically active. You have to help yourself. No one can help you but you in all of this. Remember this, okay? No one can help you but you. I'll skip this bit because this, just run out of time. So aim for about 30 minutes a day if you can, right? The other thing is, look, social media, you have to get off it. Okay, look at my phone. You're going to laugh at me, okay? I've never had a smartphone. Inshallah, I will never, ever get one. Okay, it drives my practice manager and work colleagues mad. Okay, and my family. I'm never going to get one because it just completely eats up your time and your brain. It's toxic. Just remember, you are what you read, you are what you watch. Okay, you gotta have a guard to your eyes and ears. Okay, they're two open doors to the soul. Okay, they're two open doors to the soul. They affect you. If you're accustomed to seeing people who are super successful, you're going to feel bad about yourself. You're going to feel rubbish about yourself. The second thing is, if you're accustomed to seeing people, living the dream when they might not be, you're going to feel rubbish about yourself. Okay, it's what you're influenced by. The other thing is they're highly addictive, like ridiculously addictive. Okay, 40% of your life is gone on TV or laptops or screens. Adults spend on top of work. They spend 8 hours or more a day on a screen on top of work. Children spend 6.5 hours a day outside of school. Okay, we log on to social media every 2 hours. We check our smartphones for no reason every 12 minutes. We swipe over 2,000 times a day on average for no reason. Okay, it just kills your time. Okay, kills your time. You should have good, you don't have one, don't get one, right? And if you do the maths, right, they've worked out that you lose 5 years of your life, okay, by the time you're 60. 5 years of your life is gone by the time you're 60 because of these devices. Now just picture it like this. If we imagine that for the first 15 years of our life, we don't do anything meaningful between us and Allah because we're kids, right? Agreed? Okay. If we sleep 8 hours a day, by the time you hit 60, how many years has gone? If we sleep 8 hours a day, by the time we hit 60, how many years has gone in sleep? When your maths lesson is next. Loads. Okay, give me a number. I think your maths teacher is going to be very vexed with you guys, man. If you live for 60 years and 8 hours of your life has gone in sleeping, how many years have you lost? Okay, it's 20 years. Okay, 1/3 of your day has gone in sleep. 1/3 of your life has gone in sleep. So that's 20 years. If we assume that we work 8 hours a day, how many years of our life has gone in work? That's 20 years. That's 40 years now. If we take away 15 years of our first 15 years because we were just kids, that takes you up to the age of 55 years. Okay? 55 years is gone. And then the rest of your 5 years that you've got left between 55 and 60 is gone on the phone. In other words, you've done nothing between you and Allah. Nothing. You have nothing. Why is that important? The smallest amount of your existence, of your entire existence, is on this planet. Our souls, before we came here, were with Allah for God knows how long. Centuries. Okay? Our time here is the shortest. What? A few years? Maximum, no one lives past 120 in the world, right? Our time in the grave is infinitely greater. If we just look at the Rasul Sallallahu, he passed away 1400 years ago. 1400 years is a long time. And then Akhirah is infinite. And we're wasting our time. It's really important to try and like really get this in, drill it in our heads. Now, if some of you are addicted, get hold of this book. Maybe tell your parents to get hold of it. You'll have bags of fun. Okay, really, really important to try and get off it. Because look, one study from Facebook found, this was in first lockdown, a group of young people came off Facebook for just 1 month and they felt better. They were more happy, satisfied with life, less anxious. Okay, so imagine if you do that for a long time. Okay, really, really important. Okay, sleep. Somebody mentioned sleep. Sleep is ridiculously important. Okay, no one's saying don't sleep for 8 hours. Okay, but when you're awake, don't waste your time on your phone. Okay, sleep is really important. Aim for 7 hours a night. Now, obviously, some of you are Bali, you're going to be praying Fajr. Catch up, especially in the summer. There's no harm having a little nap during the day, but aim for 7 to 8 hours a night. Okay, if you're struggling to sleep, no, 4 or 5 is not enough. It's not good for your health. If you're struggling to sleep, what you want to do is a couple of things. Number one, no screen time 1 hour before bed or 1 hour after. Get it out of your life. You'll sleep a lot better. Okay, because these phones are designed to keep you alert. Okay, no screen time. 1 hour before or after bed. Have a warm bath before you go to bed. Put some lavender oil in the bath or around you, so here or on the temples. Drink chamomile tea. I mean, you can try it. It's disgusting. Try it. It might help you. Or try meditating. In our tradition, it's called muraqabah. Just try it, just to bring yourself down. Okay, but sleep is really important, especially for physical health and mental health as well. Okay, now lastly, how much time have I got, Mrs. Stone? Just be honest, because I can stop if you need to. We end at 12. Okay, I'll try and keep it as quick as I can. Okay, because it's important to talk about this. Look, we talked about the fact that it's not a sign of weak iman. It isn't, but there's always room to strengthen your iman. Okay, so there's always room. Now, look, you have to refer back to Allah everything in life. What does Allah say when we talked about the Prophet ﷺ experiencing sadness? Who knows when this verse was revealed? Anybody know when this verse was revealed? People are typing. Yeah, I know, 14 years ago. And he said no. Yeah, no. So this was when he was in the cave, Abdurrahim, mashallah. When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu Prophet was in the cave, Abu Bakr became really scared because they were outside and they wanted to assassinate him. And Allah revealed, La tahsan, don't be sad, don't grieve, don't get upset, don't worry. Inna Allah ma'ana, Allah's with us. That is something that's really important, needs to be drilled inside us. That no matter what happens to me in my life, there's a higher purpose. Allah is helping me grow. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know. I can't see what the plan is, and maybe I'll never see it. But I know my Allah, who's more merciful than my mother by 99 portions more, is never going to leave me hanging, is never going to harm me. Because that's not the nature of someone who's merciful. And he said, Inna Allah ma'ana, Allah's with us. And you've got to get that in your head, and then you'll find it easier to deal with trauma that comes your way or difficulties that comes your way. Surah Baqarah, Sahih, La yukallifu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah does not give you something that you can't endure. Khalas. And you have to tell yourself that. Surah Baqarah, Allah, sometimes something that you don't like, فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ, it might be good for you. You just don't know. Something that you like, وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ, might not be good for you. But this is the key. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Of course, the one who made you, the one who fashioned you, the one who designed you, the one who sustains you 24/7. Of course, he knows what's good for you. And the key is understanding this. And if you remember anything from this bit about Iman, remember this. Allah does what's aslaha lakum. Allah does what's more better for you, not afdala lakum, not what's more virtuous for you. He does what's better for your islah, for your rectification, for your growth. He does what's better for you. What's more afdal? Was it more afdal that the whole of Makkah embraced Islam? Aside from the Prophet ﷺ having to be emigrated to and leave his house to Medina Munawwara, what's afdal? Of course, it's afdal for the Prophet ﷺ to have not gone through all that hardship. But Allah did what's aslaha lahu, what was better for him in terms of growth and settling in Medina Munawwara. Now, some of the Sahaba couldn't see it at the time. Look at Hudaybiyah and what happened with Umar radiallahu anh. They couldn't see it. But that's what's called growth. That you just leave it in the hands of Allah. That even if I don't see it in this world, I'll see it in the next world. And that's what you got to play these verses in your head over and over and over again. Another verse, look, you have to help yourself. Innal insana khuliqa halu'a. Allah's created insan anxious, like unsettled. It's our nature. إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا. When harm afflicts us, we freak out. وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. But when good comes to us, we become really stingy. We don't share the love. Except who? إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ. Now, if whoever's solid in their prayer, you'll find that they're less shaky with their emotions because they're so deeply connected to Allah. Try it. If you're weak in your prayer, get on it. Start with 1, 2, 3, aim for 5 by the end of the year. No matter what, I'm going to pray my fard, no matter what. And watch what happens to your brain. Watch what happens to your demeanor. Because this is like a medicine that Allah's given us. So I'll share these slides. I won't, because I'm running out of time. But these are prophetic du'as that you want to read over and over again. This was from Abu Umama, who was sat in the masjid because he was so sad. Humumun ghalabatni wa duyunun rakabatni. He was sat in the masjid, the Prophet sad. And the Prophet said, why are you sat here? It's not even time for salah. He said, I'm just so grieved and debt has overcome me. And the Prophet taught him this dua. And he read it morning and evening for a week and his debt was settled. So get this, this is prophetic medicine for you. Really, really important. Another one, I'll share the size. This dua, the Prophet read without fail, morning and evening, asking for well-being. Really, these are like prophetic prescriptions that he's given us. And then the last one, consider reading this in the morning and in the evening, that whoever says this, it's a duty upon Allah to make that person happy. Now, that's a win-win situation. If it's just by saying something and then it's haqqun ala Allah and yurdiyahu, to please that person, it's a win-win situation, absolute win-win situation. But that's what I want you to do. If for those, you should read the life of the Prophet and like what he went through. Allahu Akbar. And he was the happiest individual on the planet. But it's really important to then reflect at how he managed difficult things when you probably find a lot of answers. Last thing, look, don't complain. No, we cannot complain. 2/3 of the planet live off £2-3 a day. So our nightmare could be somebody else's dream. Okay, really, really important to understand that. And so just do this 2 minutes of gratitude every day, just for 2 minutes, just 2 minutes every day before you go to sleep. Just tell yourself, okay, Allah, what am I happy about today? I'll start you off. Allah, I can breathe without having a tube here. I can see and I've got color vision. I can hear without any problems. I wasn't left hungry today. You could go on and on. You could go on and on. And what happens is it's proven now that whoever does this just for 2 minutes, just counting your blessings, this is non-Muslims. Just count what you're grateful for every day, just for 2 minutes. Your sleep improves, your blood pressure comes down, you have more energy, your symptoms of depression will reduce, and also it's proven that you'll live longer, inshallah wa ta'ala. We'll stop there, inshallah. Any questions? Because it's 12 o'clock soon. We can squeeze some in before you finish.